Hello and welcome back for the Week 14 NFL DFS Slate Breakdown. We got a very fun week on our hands here, and I'm excited to dive into it all. I'm your host, Tyler Lehman, at FlatTyler83, and as always, this is presented by LineStar. Remember, we do have a free 7-day trial through the App Store. Download LineStar app. If you've never tried us out before, you can get free 7 days. It is the best app by far in the business. Can help you do your research on the go. You can do a ton with it. Come check us out. It's a fun place. What you will see here is the website, and with the subscription on the app, you also do get access to the website, and vice versa. If you sign up on the website, then you get a subscription to the app as well. So let's go. Let's get into it and see what we got here. As has been the case, 11 games on FanDuel. We got 10 games on DraftKings. And it is an exciting one that we will be digging into today. As the overview of it, as we always start, there's not a ton of real high-scoring game environments, at least as projected by Vegas. The highest one by far is this Buffalo and Rams game. After that, we got 46.5 for Raiders Tampa, 45.5 Eagles Carolina, but that's a 13.5 point spread. And then we got a 45 with Jets Dolphins, 45 with Falcons Minnesota, and 44.5 in Falcons Vikings. That's 45. And then 44.5 is Cardinals and Seahawks. So a lot of, outside of that, high-priced Buffalo game or high-score Buffalo game, everything's kind of mid-totals here. So I think it's a very interesting week to play some game environment stuff, because I think most of the game environment attention may be going to Buffalo Rams. However, those players are pretty high priced, and if you do that then takes you off some of the good chalk that we have this week, like Saquon, Kamara, or some of the high priced tight ends. So I think it's a very interesting week to build some lineups, and there's some tough choices to make, and we're going to get into all that. First, let's talk about the fastest games of the week. It is Cleveland Pitt. Game total of 43.5, but this game is by far projects to be the quickest game of the week. And it's an interesting one. You got the Jameis effect. Jameis is going to get back there and chuck the ball a ton. So just more plays on both sides of the ball because of that. And I'm interested in pieces in that game for sure. Next, we got the Giants and the Saints. It's only a 41-point game total, but the game speed is going to be quick enough that there's likely some pieces from this game that, we should be using. And then also we have the Falcons versus the Vikings, 45-point game total in Minnesota. And it's absolutely one that we should be looking at as well. So now let's dig into the actual slate. Let's go position by position and start breaking it down. Our highest owned quarterbacks on FanDuel, we got Will Levis, Baker Mayfield, and Aiden O'Connell. The thing that I think is most interesting about this, if you look at our team defense tool, what do you see? Will Levis, Aiden O'Connell, Mac Jones, Baker Mayfield are there. So the field essentially likes where our team defense tool is saying are the best matchups. Now, what's not there is Mac Jones, Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, some other ones that can clearly get there. So let's break it down a little bit. Will Levis in an absolute smash spot versus the Jags. The Jags have been awful versus quarterback. And Will Levis has been playing decent ball lately. 19, 17, 17, 16 over his last 4. Now, some of those were tough matchups. He now has an easy one versus the Jags. Can he take advantage is the part where, we're really not sure. If I am Tennessee, this season's a loss. You're 3-9. Let Levis drop back 40 times versus a poor pasty and just chuck that thing all over the place. That's how I would be doing it to try and develop my quarterback here, get him some more confidence and let him fire away. If that's the case, we look real interesting here. But one of the things we haven't really seen is this team being home favorites. And we know they like to run the ball, and they could end up just running the crap out of the ball. And if that is what happens, Will Levis doesn't really get there, Calvin Ridley doesn't really get there, and Tony Pollard smashes. Now, for me personally, development-wise, I would say screw that. Let's throw the ball and try and develop this young quarterback a little bit more. So I do think Will Levis is interesting, but there's also the case that it could be the Tony Pollard show. Next, we got Baker Mayfield, 8,100. So the emergence of this Bucky Irving hype train over the last couple weeks has made it where Baker really hasn't had to sling it quite as much. Even though he has Evans back, he's got his option. He's throwing the ball, low 30s opposed to mid 40s, 50, which he was earlier in the season when he was giving us these big totals. Now Bucky Irving is banged up. Really not sure how banged up. He was only in on like one play in the last 3 series of that game last week. So not too sure what's going on here, but if he is banged up, I could see them throwing the ball a little bit more. We know Rachaad White just isn't that effective of a runner between the tackles, which could mean, the Mayfield dropping back and chucking it a little bit. In that case, I think White's interesting. I think Evans is interesting. And there's definitely some game script bets we can make in this one. 46.5 total is one of the higher on the week. On the Raiders side, you have Jacoby and Brock Bowers, who have been pretty much switching off big weeks, and they're just getting an insane amount of the target share. So I think game script bets here are kind of interesting. And we kind of covered Aiden O'Connell. I mean, on DraftKings, I think it's more interesting than on FanDuel, just because you don't have, on FanDuel, the quarterbacks are so tightly priced that it's like, I would rather not have to go to an Aiden O'Connell. The chance of him getting 25 is slim. Now, this is a spot he could, and if you're stacking him, you just go Myers and Bowers, and then, do a Bucks run back or something, and that's just how you play it. So I don't mind if you want to go some Aiden, but not my first choice in this slate. All right, so now let's get into some pivots. I want to start by the high price first. We have 2 main high price guys that could potentially put the slate out of reach for the quarterbacks. That's Jalen Hurts, who's in a great spot versus the Panthers, but he's not going to run or throw the ball that much in this spot. They're 13.5-point favorites, and Jalen Hurts' big games this year have all been with rushing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, 1, 2. So you are relying on those rushing touchdowns if you're using Jalen Hurts. I don't even think you have to stack him this week. Also, you're pretty much doing a leverage play off Barkley here. Barkley is going to be a very high-owned running back. If he gets 2 touchdowns, he smashes because it's probably coming with 200 yards or something like that. So I think Barkley is a very interesting spot. If you want some leverage off it, you got Jalen Hurts, who is obviously interesting. They're not going to have to throw much. You're looking for the rushing touchdowns if you're picking him, but he can easily go for 30 plus in this matchup. So I think he is interesting. Next, we got Josh Allen, 8,900, 5% owned versus the Rams, highest game total on the slate. My issue, unless they are pushed, he isn't going to go for 30. That's how it's been all season long. Now, it's a tough matchup for the Rams. The Bills are good versus the receivers. They can get beat on the ground, but, it's not the easiest matchup ever in this spot for the Rams to really push the Bills. But they can. They are talented enough on offense. They can push them. Now, the thing here is that you need a put the game on my back Josh Allen type game to put it out of reach. And then this is another spot that, like, I don't really care to stack Josh Allen. If I do, I would probably just put him with one, and I might actually do 2 Ram bringbacks instead of, just one in this spot, because the situation for the Rams is when their receivers really get going, it's usually also Kyren, or Kyren gets going and then a receiver comes with them. And I think that's kind of what needs to happen here for the Rams to really keep up with the Bills, or to be able to push the Bills. And as we know, Josh Allen's got to get a rushing touchdown to go for 30 pretty much. Either that or he's getting 4 touchdowns, super efficiently with 50 yards rushing. But his most likely way to 30-point performance is with a rushing touchdown. So I don't think it's necessary to stack 2 with Allen. I would at most go 1. So that's the interesting part, I think, about this slate from the quarterback's standpoint. If you're not going those, you're pretty much paying down, and there are plenty of options to pay down on. Now, let's go back here and look at some of the other options. We got Jameis Winston. Prime Jameis goes Jameis game last week. Just absolutely incredible versus Denver. I love watching him play. I love watching him just drop back and sling the ball 30 times and then have his wild pressers, before, after the games. He is just like a caricature. He's hilarious. But he's interesting for DFS also. He's just throwing the ball a lot. Look, 58 times is not going to happen again this season. But 46, 46, 41, those can absolutely happen versus a very good Steelers team. Now, it's not a great matchup. Steelers have been very solid versus the pass, but Browns can't run the ball. And the likelihood is that Jameis is going to have to be throwing all game long, and he has several guys to throw it to. So I think game environment bets in one of the fastest games, actually the fastest game by a decent margin of the week, is here. I think the Browns give up a ton of big plays. So Pickens, Calvin Austin look great. And then Jameis really has 3 people you stack with, and then, you can go to Michael Woods also if you want to pay down and save some money. But I think this game environment is one that we can bet on as well. Kirk Cousins, this one's scary. But once again, another fast game of the week. We know the Falcons don't want to throw the ball unless they're getting pushed. This is a game they're probably going to get pushed. They're almost 7-point underdogs. Kirk Cousins has been awful lately. Good defenses have just eaten him up, and Minnesota is a very, very good defense that brings pressure. They're going to try and force Kirk Cousins into some mistakes. But if Cousins can stay clean, get the ball out quick, there's less men in the back, so there's potential for big plays, potential for him to throw the ball a ton here. So I'm interested in game environment bets here as well. You also obviously have very good bringbacks in Justin Jefferson if this game does get going a little bit. Josh Allen, we talked about. Geno Smith. Now, this is more of a play. I like it more if Kenneth Walker is out. The reason, Zach Charbonnet, nice little value possible running back this week. He's better in the pass catching role than, just pure running back rushing role. So I think it gives Geno a little higher floor. And in this game environment versus the Cardinals, there's a huge range of outcomes. It could be like a couple weeks ago, 16-6. Or it could go 31-21 or 45-10, like a few years ago. So I think there's big time variance in this spot, and I don't mind some game environment bets here as well, especially if Kenneth Walker is out. I love Trey McBride on the other side, and that's one. Pretty much what I'm doing here is I'm making game environment bets outside of some of the chalk that I like. And lastly, I want to go over Caleb Williams. This 49ers D has just dropped off big time, and it's coming in with Caleb actually playing pretty well. We have a 27, a 26. Earlier in the year, he's putting up 30. He's showing some upside with his legs, and the 49ers haven't been great lately. So I think there's some game environment bets here that look very, very interesting. And then on the 49ers side, you got Isaac Guerendo, who's just in an amazing spot and likely going to see huge ownership, but also underpriced for sure. So game environment bets with the Bears make sense. The new OC, now head coach, has totally unlocked this offense, and it's interesting for sure. So moving over to DraftKings, see if we haven't covered anybody. High owned, Connell, Mayfield, Levis, Kyler and Sam Darnold are there. I'm fine with Kyler. He's only 6K, and he's shown us 425 plus appearances. I like him a lot more on DraftKings than I do on FanDuel, that's for sure, but game environment bet is fine. Sam Darnold, he's been the most consistent quarterback probably this year, just constantly low 20s. The problem is I just don't think he's going to give you 25 plus. I think he's great for 22. Like, get him in cash lineups. I just don't think he's winning you a GPP, so I can't really go there. All right. Now, let's get over to running backs here. Keep moving it on. Now, our big strategy thing here is we got Barkley, Kamara, and Guerendo. Personally, I think it's Barkley and Guerendo. Those are the two main ones. And if you look at our projections agree. We got Barkley at 25.41. Just an insane score. He's 10K, and we have him at 2.5x. Pretty much, if you don't have him, your lineups are likely to be projecting less. I think he's going to be very high owned, and he should be. He's in a smash spot. The coach is a player's coach, wants to get the players the accolades. So I think Barkley's in a great spot to absolutely smash. Like I said, if you don't go Barkley, going Hurts is interesting as well. But this running game versus the 32nd running game is in a smash spot, and I think you love it. Isaac Guerendo is just an absolute beast. There is some worries about possible pass protection stuff. Pretty much the only time we've seen him this year is in spots where the 49ers are just running, where we don't really need to rely on his passing game involvement. But when he has got work as a runner, he has been electric. 10 for 99, 14 for 85. Oh, and this 10 for 99, that could have been a touchdown, but he slowed up because they had the game won. So it easily could have been 10 for like 110 and a touchdown. Dallas, 14 for 85, a tutty, 3 receptions, 17 yards. He's a beast. He's one of the only guys in the league that's like 220 pounds and runs a 4.3. Guy is athletic specimen. So I think he's in a good spot. Bears giving it up on the ground. I like me some Isaac Guerendo. So that's your main 3 decision point for running back here. I don't think we need to get too wild with running backs this week. Alvin Kamara, he's fine. The whole narrative here is there's no Taysom Hill anymore, so he likely gets more goal line work. There is one caveat to that. Does look like Kendre Miller is going to be back, and he's probably going to steal some workload from Kamara. So maybe, and I mean, this is all hypothetical, not totally sure. Maybe that Kamara workload comes down a little bit, and if I'm putting Kamara and Barkley head to head, I'm taking Barkley every single time. He's just done it more consistently than Kamara this season. Kamara really, if you just take out that 143-point game, 9,200 is a wild score for him, or price for him. So that's a 3 main. Now let's get in. They're also the 3 highest owned. Achane, I don't mind. He just hasn't been very effective as a runner. Aaron Jones, I'm okay with, but it's been a little tough to run against that Atlanta D. Najee Harris, Browns have been hard to run against. So now let's get into some pivots. DeAndre Swift versus the 49ers. 49ers allowing almost 130 yards per game on the ground and 1.8 touchdowns. Another thing, Roschon Johnson is out. So it is back to being the DeAndre Swift show. Now, Swift is questionable, so we need to watch to see if he plays or not. But I do think this spot is interesting. And there is potential upside here with the giant workload. James Cook. Rams have been bad versus running back all season long. And James Cook is one of the stacking partners I would consider with good old Josh Allen. Now, if he's getting rushing touchdowns, it's going to hurt you. But if he gets a passing touchdown, it will help you. But this offense goes how either James Cook or Josh Allen goes. He's absolutely a main part of it. Has 2 big scores, week winning scores under his belt. So if you want to go here, fine. But 1,500 more and you're getting Barkley. I kind of would rather that in most spots outside of like a game environment bet there. Rachaad White, 6,200. We talked about Bucky Irving being banged up a little bit. If he is more banged up, and seeing a limited role, I think Rachaad White then starts to look very, very interesting. Last year, we saw him roll 20, point performances off like hotcakes a little bit. We saw 18, 21, 21, 17, and that's all just because of workload. If the workload is there in this matchup, he'll do fine. Tony Pollard, 7,500. We talked about the fact that Tennessee Titans are home favorites. We haven't seen this. Pollard's been good this season, but he just has games where he just disappears because they just got to chuck the ball a ton of times. When they win, he's been a big portion of that, getting a ton of carries, and Spears really hasn't got that many carries since he's been back, so I'm not too worried about Spears being there. I think Tony Pollard is interesting. My issue is the chance of multiple scores. It's just not very likely. So that 25-plus type score may not be there. Tyrone Tracy, 6,600. Definitely like him versus the Saints, who haven't been good. 29th versus running back, 1.1 touchdowns a game over the season, 1.3 over the last 4. I think he's in a very interesting spot. One of the things you do need to watch, though, is Neighbors is questionable. Could mean just more work for Tracy, both in the run game and the pass game. I think he's interesting. He's shown us 20-plus upside already. And Braylon Allen. It is likely that our Breece Hall is doubtful, so we likely have the Braylon Allen show here. Now, Miami has been solid against the running back, so I don't absolutely love going Braylon Allen, but he's big, he's dynamic, he's good. We've seen him get it going this year. I think he's an interesting spot for too cheap for his role. So he'll probably come with more ownership than we are currently showing, but he's absolutely interesting. Bucky Irving, dude's been just smashing. He's on a roll. I am interested, but his back and hip injuries do scare me because he lost a little bit of workload because of it last year, and we know they're fine to go to Rachaad White also. But look, if this guy is getting 28 touches, he's going to absolutely smash. Even 18 plus, he'll do well. So I like him, but that big price up jump, so I don't like it as much. And then Zach Charbonnet. If Kenneth Walker's out, 5,300, you got to consider some Charbs here. 15 and 24, the 2 times that he started this year, and I think that's probably the range that he would be in, if he starts versus Arizona. Absolutely interested in some Charbs. So that's kind of our running back situation. I don't think you need to get too wild with it. And if you go over to DraftKings, it's pretty much the same. Kyron Williams, though, 7,300 is a bigger price difference on DraftKings than FanDuel from Saquon. So I do think he's a little interesting. Bills have got beat up on the ground or by running back, but he really needs 2 touchdowns to make it worth it for you here because he's just not really adding much in the passing game. and he's a touchdown yardage back. I'm fine having a little bit, but I'm not going to go hard because I think Saquon's the smash spot here. All right, getting over to wide receiver here. So another Calvin Ridley spot, 6,300, 25% owned. Ridley has shown some upsides ever since D-Hop left, so you got to be a little bit intrigued with this spot versus the Jags, who are allowing 190 yards a game to the wide receiver and 1 touchdown per game. Got to like Ridley. I'm fine to go here. Probably not going super hard there, but it is one I'm interested in. Jerry Jeudy, 6,100, 22% owned. He had his coming out party last week, had another good game versus the Saints. With Tillman out, the targets are going to be there. 13, 6, 11, 11, 8. With Jameis, he's getting targeted. They're moving him all over the field, so I'm not that worried about a shadow situation with Joey Porter. And I'm fine going some Jeudy. I'm also fine going to some Eli Moore. And I'm fine going to Michael Woods III, who played 77% of the snaps off the practice squad last week. If he's playing 80% of the snaps, he only got 5 targets last week, but that makes me a little interested. It's a small target tree. Woods is cheap. If he gets a touchdown, very easily could be optimal. So fine with some Browns there. Jacoby Myers, 18% owned. He's been as consistent as they come. He just needs to get in the end zone. I like him. I'm fine with some bets for Jacoby against the poor pass D and the Bucks. I think him or Bowers both look very, very interesting, or both if you want. All right. Now let's get into some pivots. George Pickens is an obvious one. There's going to be a blow-up game at some point this season. I can't believe it hasn't came. Browns is a good one for that. They're allowing 193.8 receiving yards per game over the last 4, and 2 wide receivers and 1.3 touchdowns. They allow big plays. Love the spot for Pickens. He's a big play merchant, so sign me up there. Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, we can all talk about them together. I think it's an interesting spot. The 49ers have been okay versus wide receiver. They've been tough versus wide receiver, but this defense as a whole has just not been the same lately. And the offense of the Bears has finally got rolling, and targets are going to the 3 main guys. Allen, 8 targets, 15 targets, 8. And I would assume he gets 8, 10, 12 targets this week. One thing here is that typically, if he doesn't get targets, he doesn't have a winning, a weekly GPP winning type score. So targets are going to be a big thing here, and I'm playing Allen, making game environment bets. Rome Odunze, there's big play threat, but he's definitely the 3rd option in this on that team. And DJ Moore, who is questionable. Watch for Moore, because if Moore is out, Rome, Keenan, and then you could throw in Kmet are all very, very interesting options. But DJ Moore, 16 targets last week, 7 the week before, 7. He's a big play receiver, so very interested in that spot. Next, we got Elijah Moore. We talked about, very interested there as well. Mike Evans, 8,400. Guy needs to hit 1,000 receiving yards. He's not there. He's only at 521. He has a chance. They very much know they need to get Mike Evans the ball and need to get him his 1,000 yards so he can keep his 1,000-yard streaks going. And the guy is an absolute beast in a great matchup. I like Evans. Just worry a little bit that they're not going to have to throw enough to make him, a must-need on this slate. But he is one of the few pay-up options I do really like at wide receiver this week. And he's coming low owned, so give me some. Next, we got Juwan Jennings, 6,400. Now, one thing I want to show here, if you go to the wide receiver 1 versus the 49ers, they are first. Been very, very good. But you go to wide receiver 2, and they're 31st. Juwan Jennings is the wide receiver 2. He's in a great spot. In a game environment that we are a little interested in, I'm absolutely going to get some Juwan Jennings. A.J. Brown, 9,300 is absolutely interesting. Can have huge, huge games. I just worry that they're not going to have to throw the ball very much. Likelihood they're throwing the ball a ton is very, very low. So target counts probably in that 4 to 8 range. And if he doesn't bust a big one, he's probably not going to be optimal. But it's still a decent matchup, so I don't mind going here. He is 9,300 though, and I would rather Saquon at that price. But it is what it is. I think you got to put A.J. Brown there just from a leverage standpoint, because if he goes off, then it's likely Saquon's not. Darnell Mooney, Drake London, got to consider both of them in game environment bets. I do prefer Mooney over London just because I think he can get there in multiple different ways, where London needs the game environment. He needs the big-time targets. He had 16 targets last week, and in games that Cousins has to drop back and really chuck it, the targets are there. Brian Thomas Jr., I do have some concerns here with Mac Jones being back at quarterback. He didn't do much with Mac. He was doing a lot of shorter, medium routes, but last week they were sending him again. If they're sending him versus Tennessee, I like some BTJ bets, especially with Calvin Ridley. There's some nice little correlation there. If those guys have big games, it's likely a high-scoring game. DJ Moore we talked about. And then Michael Woods Jr. He had 5 targets last week. And, I mean, Winston chucked the ball 50-something times, so a very low target rate, but he's dead minimum and was on the field 77% coming off the practice squad. So I think there's a chance he's on the field 80%. And, you know, if at 4K with a solid quarterback chucking him the ball, I'm interested in making some of the bets like that. Now, on to DraftKings wide receiver. We got Drake London, Calvin Ridley, Jacoby Myers, Justin Jefferson. Jefferson, I think, is fine. His price is coming down. I don't absolutely love it just because I think for him to pay off, what we need is the Falcons to punch the Vikings in the mouth early, and then the Vikings are kind of trailing and throwing a little bit more. I just don't think that's that likely. Vikings D is really solid, and they've just been consistently good all season long at 10-2. Nick Westbrook-Akina, I mean, at this point, you got to consider him. He's 4,700, and Jags defense has been terrible, and he just keeps getting it done. So there's another value play if you're on DK. All right, on to tight end, and we got Cade Otton, Njoku, Bowers, the three high-owned. Now, I really think it is, you do have a choice here at tight end this week. You either pay up or don't. If you don't pay up, you are betting that Bowers, I'll throw Jonnu Smith, McBride, Kittle, don't go for 20 plus. Now, saying all 4 of them don't go for 20 plus, oh, Njoku too. All 5 of them don't go for 20 plus is a tough pill to swallow. I would say most likely one of them does. If they don't, then you can pay down, and you have options like Juwan Johnson, who now has no Taysom Hill, probably some more targets going his way, and he becomes more of a red zone threat because Taysom's not there. Kyle Pitts, who has had some big yardage games and only has 3 touchdowns on the year. He gets a tutty, has 60 yards, 5,300. He starts to look pretty interesting. So I think that's kind of the bets we're making here at tight end. Do we want to pay up or pay down? Now, Brock Bowers, dude's been just annihilating. I mean, 140 and a tutty, 126 and a tutty, 97 and a tutty. If he gets a touchdown, he's probably going 20 plus. Very interested there. Trey McBride is in that same kind of Brock Bowers realm. He has not had a touchdown this year, and he has games of 16, 19, 17, 14, 16. I mean, you had a touchdown into that type of production, and, he's a smash. He just went 12 for 133 versus the Seahawks team that's not very good versus tight ends. McBride's a smash. Definitely interested there. Jonnu Smith, Jets play a lot of, 2-4-6 or cover 2-4-6. And with that underneath stuff, yak stuff opens, which is Jonnu's game, and he's just been on a roll lately. So another interesting spot for him. George Kittle, it's no Ayuk, no CMC. When we had that, he had these runs of 16, 20, 22, 17, and we're back to that now. I think he's in a very interesting spot. I do have to say one thing about this 49ers offense as a whole. There is no Trent Williams this week, which definitely will negatively affect the offense as a whole. But Kittle's a beast, and making bets on him makes a lot of sense to me. And that'll do it for tight ends. Let's get over to DK. Oh, we got TJ Hawkinson, 4,300. He is underpriced. He's going to go high owned. Makes a lot of sense. You can save money with him and, pay up for your Saquons and, have a pretty balanced lineup still outside of those guys. I'm fine going Hawkinson. Just don't love him. I think the other pay up options are just very, very good. Njoku at 5,100. Guy had 17 targets last week. And since Winston's been there, he's just been getting peppered. So I very interested in Njoku as well. All right, on to defense. High on defense, Tennessee Titans, Philadelphia Eagles, KC Chiefs. Chiefs are in a good spot, or a fine spot. I just don't like going against Herbert. Herbert's too good of a quarterback with too good of a coach, so it's not my favorite. Eagles, obviously in a smash spot. Titans in a great spot. Fine with that also. Falcons, I don't love, but if you want to, that is okay. Darnold's fallen off a little bit, but he's still been good, and the team has been good, so I don't love that one. Arizona and Seattle, we know that game can obviously go to the under, as it did last week, so fine, or 2 weeks ago, fine having some Seahawk or Cardinal lines. I think Minnesota Vikings are in an absolute smash spot versus Cousins. Now, what I would say here is the range of outcomes here is either like a 4, like they had last week, or it's going to be like a 20 because they're sacking him, they get a pick 6, they're getting interceptions, and it just is real ugly for Atlanta. I think you're either going to see 2 of those. I don't think like a 7-8 point performance is coming. I think it's either going to be a great one or a meh defense performance. Miami Dolphins versus the Jets. Jets have just looked terrible, and Miami D has been much more solid lately, and they're at home. And then the Giants versus the Saints. It's a weird one, but they're cheap, and I don't totally trust the Saints offense, especially without Taysom. I think he's just been kind of a Swiss Army knife for them, and their wide receivers aren't very good, so pretty hard to move the ball when they just have Kamara pretty much. All right, guys, that will do it for us today. It was a fun one. Good luck. Let's make some money, and I will see you next week. Peace. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Helps us a ton, and come join us at LineStar.